why does that happen?
Hmm. Part of it is just because we're human and survival is a part of our reality. And so those
Right.
things will pop up from time to time. And that's why I like to take the word regression even out of it. It doesn't mean that you're not still growing and moving forward. Just think of that as a part of it. You could have just hit a bump in the road and that survival part just kind of got scared for a minute.
Right.
And what leads to such great, I love your word alignment, and how I work with my clients in alignment is if you're in the practice of just listening to that part, or say, and when we're under stress, these survival parts, they never will go away. We just have them. And we do need them. When we are in traffic and something bad happens, we need not to think, we need to survive.
Yeah.
So any kind of situation that might pop out for a second. But in the reason my program is called Returning to Me is that we just build the practice of being able to return here more quickly. You can spend less time there and do less harm there, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Even I've been with my husband for 11 years now, and it's not that our parts don't still pop back up. And in fact, they certainly do. We just, through the work, we don't stay there. We just kind of, whenever what survival part of us comes up that looks like relapse, like, okay, something just happened. Maybe am I just stressed? Or so I go in, and even just the act of listening with complete compassion with all of our parts restores harmony,
Hmm.
and it just
Yeah.
stops.
Yeah, the whole survival patterns are really interesting because we get those like programs and neurological connections, just that's all they end up knowing. And when we're in overwhelm, it's really hard to like adopt a new way of being. It's like this feels uncomfortable and I don't understand why I need to do it because it's so far out of your realm. I'm just going to hop on the cleanse. I'm going to shove that topic under the rug. I'm not going to give that attention because that was so long ago. Like, I don't want to live in the past. I want to live in the present and I want to move forward. I need to acknowledge that whatever that is, so we can, in my work, I call it an energetic drain because we're spending so much and it's such a low vibrational, whether there's guilt or the resentment or there's whatever pain it is, our body is so wired to like keep us up here. So we're like, oh, we're just going to function on our hamster wheel and not have to dive in there. And 10, 20, 30 years later, now we're diving in. But every time you dive in and you peel a layer back, you're like, oh, I feel lighter, like something inside of me feels released.
Yes.
But it's work. And that's why I always tell these women, like, you acknowledge yourself for being here because it's not the easiest place to be. It's easy to get a program, hop on a 30-day program, do the cleanse, stick to it, be diligent. That's the out of alignment portion. This is the portion where you're like,
Glad you brought that up, because something you just said triggered another important piece of listening to these parts in ourselves when we feel like we're in relapse or regression. When we start to pay attention to these survival parts or self, or the part of us that did it again, when we talk to it like we would a child and we listen and we hold space, that part holds that. Because I know you do like trauma, like fascial, release and things. Same thing here. That part can hold trauma and old hurts and old wounds, which of course have to be released. Talking about just the neurology of it, part of shifting patterns is releasing the trauma, because stored in our tissues and our nervous system will keep triggering the brain to do the same thing over and over again.
how do we even entertain this idea of creating space now when we have two businesses, we're managing a team, we have, two kids? How do we create space?
What I do for myself and what I invite my clients to do is like, it's practice. This is where we are in psychic personal training and redoing a pattern. So this is the point where I start giving my clients assignments like do something small for yourself every day. You don't have to start with creating 2 hours for yourself for this huge emotions release. Can you create a minute? Can you create 2 minutes just to get in the practice of creating space? And this is such a part of reparenting the self of, because you absolutely do have time. We all have time. It's just, are you prioritizing time with you? When not prioritizing you isn't in of itself a survival program. Learn to not put our needs at the forefront. We've learned to just put them in the back. So we start even just by building the muscle of creating a little space for yourself every day. And you use words earlier, because I wrote them down, like, body trust and self-trust. This builds trust within self.